So today I'm talking about codependency in relationships. Are you helping others too much? So in this video, you're going to learn whether or not helping others is actually hurting you and some different solutions so that you don't have to do that anymore. But first, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. So one of the core symptoms of codependency is helping others even when it's not in your best interest. Because codependent people like myself, we have huge hearts and we want to give and we want to help others. It's part of our identity that we learn growing up. So in our relationships, that's one of the focuses in our recovery is how to help others in moderation and not when it hurts us. So there's a couple of reasons why in our codependency, we tend to help others a little too much. One is when you struggle with codependency, giving or helping others makes you feel like the hero. I know for me, that's when I was at my best, is when I could give. The problem was, because I was giving too much, there was always a back end of resentment and hurt that I never was expressing. So the next reason that we help others a little too much is that seeing others in pain often triggers our own pain. It can also make you feel anxious, like you can't really tolerate somebody else's suffering. Most likely this goes back to childhood. So when we see other people in pain, we compulsively feel like we have to jump to the rescue. The next reason that we tend to help too much is that it becomes in our codependency our primary love language. That is how we get love and how we get other people to like us and approve of us. Because we're really good helpers. And like I said, we have big hearts. And that's a lovely trait, but we need in recovery to learn how to do that in moderation. Because trying to help others is compassionate, but when it's compulsive, it's codependency in relationships. And that's what we want to try to avoid. So here's a few questions I want you to ask yourself so that you can figure out if you're helping too much. 1, are you doing for others what they could be doing for themselves? Because what that does is it sets up a dynamic where they become dependent on you to do things for them, and it makes their life easier. So at first glance, you might think you're being helpful, but eventually what this does is it robs the other person of being independent. They start needing you more, and they start becoming more childlike, and you start to become the mean parent, trying to tell them what to do with their lives, and it's not a good mix. It actually hurts our relationships a lot. It also prevents the other person from taking responsibility for their life, and that's when we, as the codependent, start to feel more and more responsible for that other person, because now we have been over-functioning and the other person is under-functioning, which is a really unhealthy dynamic that you want to get away from. Another question I want you to think about is, do you have regrets immediately after giving? At first, you feel like the hero, like you're being this wonderful person, but soon after you have that regret, like that, I really didn't want to commit to doing that. And it's really when we say yes and we mean no, but we don't let ourselves say no because part of our identity is wrapped up in helping others. And that's the core of our codependency that we need to work on. This also indicates that you're probably sacrificing yourself way too much because that regret is not something negative. I really want you to hear this. Feelings of regret or resentment are your telltale signs that something is not okay. You are actually crossing your own boundary and not taking care of yourself in your relationships. And that is why any type of negative emotion that you're feeling after you help someone is something I want you to pay attention to, whether it's annoyance or irritability, or maybe you're starting to judge that other person for always taking advantage of you, but you're the one saying yes. And that's what we want to work on. If you've ever done this, say yes in the comments. I'm right there with you. I have had plenty of regrets doing this. Okay, so the next question I want you to ask yourself is, do you have a telltale sign that tells you that you're really wanting to say no? So for instance, it might be feeling irritated by the other person, or having a pit in your stomach, or feeling nervous or nauseous. What are those telltale signs, whether it's an emotion or a feeling in your body, that tell you you really want to say no and help somebody a little bit less? Or in some cases, not at all. Because that feeling is your sign to let you know that you could say no here. Your body is already saying it for you. That's the great thing about paying attention to your body, because that's how you're going to find your inner no. Another question I want you to ask yourself is, do you feel like you don't have a choice? Like you absolutely have to help that other person. Because again, this is the compulsive part of codependency in relationships that we really want to target. Because truth be told, you always have a choice. You don't have to give everything you're giving. You could choose to give less. You could choose to stay silent, or you could say, you know what, let me think about it, and really think about it and let them know later what your truth is, instead of feeling like you have to say yes in the moment, because that too is part of codependency, is we absolutely feel like we have to respond immediately rather than taking the time for us to figure out what's going to work. So here are some other alternatives for how you can help others without sacrificing yourself. 1, you can actually listen. This is a majorly undervalued skill, but most people really crave being heard. So what I want you to do is just listen to them and go, wow, you know what? It sounds like that's really tough. Or you can ask a few questions to show interest. You don't have to solve it. Part of the dilemma in codependency in relationships is that we feel responsible for the other person, but we're really not. So just listening and validating their feelings about something is huge. Most people don't get that, and they are truly going to value you for that. Another thing you can do is help them brainstorm a few solutions instead of trying to figure it out all by yourself. Because think about it, this other person's problem is not your problem, it's their problem. So the best way for you to take care of yourself and show them support is sometimes to do less. And part of that is to say, hey, why don't we brainstorm together what you can do? And eventually they're going to get used to that. At first, this might feel really weird, like they're used to you solving their problems, but eventually they're going to get the hint that you're no longer going to take responsibility for their problems. And that is going to help you give less to them and more to yourself. The other thing you can do is ask them what kind of support they need, because sometimes we jump the gun and assume they need us to solve it when really, sometimes they really don't. They're asking for something entirely different, like to be heard, or maybe they just need a hug. And sometimes those simple, loving acts of kindness goes a long way, instead of what us codependents sometimes do is we feel like we have to do it all. I know for me, I felt that a lot, and I got really addicted to wanting to play the hero. But after a while, it really hurt me because the resentment on the back end of that was really hard. So here's an important bonus tip. I want you to think about, what do you want to give in your relationships and what do you don't want to give in relationships? And I want you to write it out, because you have every right to give what you want to give, not what you feel you have to give. And at first, this is going to feel really uncomfortable, but you can do it. Baby steps count. Even if you give a little bit less this week, that's going to make a difference in your recovery. So the next thing I want you to do is go watch my video on codependency recovery, because that's your next step. Thanks so much.